This month's episode is brought to you by Podbean. Think you have what it takes to start up a podcast? Podbean makes it easy with one-stop audio hosting and registering to the major podcast services like iTunes, Google Play, and Spotify. Go to podbean.com/VGXTpod to start your show and join an ever-expanding online community.
Crosstalk, the unintentional transfer of signals between communication channels, a casual conversation.
Hello world, this is Videogame Crosstalk, episode 030, the monthly podcast of gamers talking tech, science, and whatever else comes to mind. I'm your host, Anthony Rossi, and with me this episode is fellow podcaster and the man behind Super Retro Throwback Reviews, Stephen Christina. Stephen, thank you so much for joining me tonight.
Thank you for having me, Anthony. It's great to be back on Videogame Crosstalk.
Yeah, it's been a while. I was just thinking about this while I was getting everything ready. I think with this episode, I will have completed recording with the people that I was looking forward to or trying to connect with from the Empire State Comic Con of last year, going back a bit of a ways. So yeah, you were on my live episode for the Empire State Comic Con back here in Albany, New York. So, yeah, welcome back.
Thank you.
So, Steve, what have you been up to?
Well, a lot's changed since, a lot's been happening since you and I have crossed paths at Empire State Comic Con.
Oh, yeah?
When at Empire State Comic Con last year, David Ellefson was there, and I got to interview him for my podcast.
Nice.
My interview with him got quoted by blabbermouth.net.
Really?
Yes. The download numbers have just spiked and increased. We have a worldwide fan base. We're being listened to worldwide. We just keep doing episode after episode after episode. We are just not looking back. We're just moving forward, and we're just continuing to give you new content. Hence, in our third year, we have the tagline, bigger, better, badder.
Nice. I do have to give you credit. This is something like credit where credit is due. You push out quite a bit of content on a regular basis.
Yeah. It keeps me busy because I work part-time at one job, and the rest of the time I'm not working. I focus on this. So I do have free time to work on some content.
Yeah, you've been pushing out a lot of the mobile reviews for different movies. How's that been working for you?
I got a rhythm going now. I enjoy doing that. I get a lot of feedback for that. And it's fun going to a movie every weekend and then putting the review out the following day. And, it's fun. It's fun doing this and getting everyone informed. If they don't want to spend $20 on a movie and another $20 on snacks, they can check my review out and see, if I want to see Captain Marvel, maybe I should check out his review instead of spending almost $40 on snacks and a ticket.
Yeah, luckily I lay off the snacks for the most part. I used to just like go all out for the movie going experience. Get the popcorn, get the soda, get the candy and all that other stuff. But as time has passed, I'll still get the popcorn on occasion, but I'm no longer even getting the large popcorn. I actually went to see Alita Battle Angel over the weekend, and we'll definitely be talking about that later on. But I noticed myself, I'm beginning to slack more and more on the snacking aspect. I got a medium popcorn, which was still absurdly expensive. And now I see, I knew beforehand that you spend an extra 50 cents, you get 3 times as much popcorn in the bucket and or bag that they throw at you. But I just doing as much as I can to consciously reduce the amount of snacking that I'm doing. But yeah, it's expensive.
It is.
Everyone knows it's expensive. I don't know if we're quite $20 a movie, depending on which theater we go to. But I mean, just for rounding sake and for conversation's sake, yeah, it's about $20.
Right.
$20 a hit these days.
If that, yeah.
Yeah. Oh, and actually, now that I'm thinking about it, I did rewatch your mobile movie review for Alita. You actually saw that in 3D, didn't you?
Yes, I did.
That adds to the price tag, I'm sure.
It does. You have your movie passes and your AMC stub thing, and they have their benefits where you can, for your monthly subscription, you can see a 3D movie. But I think the 3D novelty, and I'll mention this again when we talk about Alita, but the 3D novelty is, to me, the gimmick's worn off. But
Yeah.
I rarely see a movie in 3D, but for this movie, I saw it in 3D, and I'll talk about it a little more later.
Okay. All right. So then we'll move away from the mobile reviews for now. What else are you doing on your pod? It's really not just a podcast, is it? You do a lot of stuff. Yes?
Well, yes, I have a YouTube channel where we do the mobile movie reviews. We also do a 31 Days of Horror every October, and we also do various random reviews. Like I just did a review on the Punisher Netflix series before Netflix canceled it.
Yeah, I was debating whether or not I wanted to put that into the agenda for today's episode, but continue. Go ahead.
And, I just pick, random stuff to review on the YouTube channel. But the audio podcast, we go to conventions and we cover the convention. We interview the vendors, celebrities, and artists. We got to interview you at Empire State Comic Con last year.
That was a blast.
Yeah. But we also talk about the latest movie, music, and video game news. And we do have interviews with other people. Most famously, there's this person that has a business, and we sponsor his business every other month, and he does double features in Connecticut. We have him on every other month to promote his double feature, and we just go into just straight movie talk, and it goes into about an hour, and it's probably my most popular episodes when I have him on. So
very nice. So you say you've been doing Super Retro Throwback Reviews, and I'm going to keep saying that because was it my side of the interview at Empire State? I think I botched your name 3 times, and each time I actually said it I botched it 3 times and in a different way each time. So I'm making the conscious effort to get your name right.
And it's okay. You're not the only one. I've had people that have come onto the show, and I've been onto other people's shows, and they've gotten the name mixed up in 30 different ways. It's like when you go to a wing place and you can get multiple wing sauce combinations on your wings.
Right.
It's the best way I could sum it up.
Yeah, not gonna lie, I was debating. I opted not to, but I was debating, just so you know, that the idea was floating around my twisted little brain that I would have a separate document open while I was recording this, and I would go down a list of different variations of the name, just so I wouldn't say the same name twice throughout the episode. I'd considered it. But I didn't follow through. Oh well. It's okay. So you've been doing this for 3 years?
I have. November of 2018 marked 3 years. We were at Rhode Island Comic Con, and that was the first weekend in November. That was our 3-year anniversary. We did a podcast and panel, and we literally celebrated 3 years at that panel. Everyone that was there, we had a big celebration. All the panel attendees and the panelists on my panel, we did something big. We had a big get together. It was, 3 years I've been doing this, and it's just a big snowball that keeps getting bigger and bigger and bigger. And
it's a lot of fun. I tell people the first time that I tell them that I do a podcast, I mean, I'm still very small. I'm growing ever so painfully slowly, but I am growing with each episode and with each guest that I have on, and trying to get into a little bit more of a rhythm of just posting some blog posts. I do have plans for YouTube content. Right now, my biggest issue is finding the time to actually do it. But when I tell people that I do a podcast, sometimes they look at me a little funny, and other times I just tell them straight up, listen, it is so much fun creating content in this way.
And it is really fun. I mean, it's really addicting. I mean, I went to school for it. I went to Connecticut School of Broadcasting, which is one of the oldest schools in the United States. There's 12 locations from Boston to Miami, and I went to one of the original school in Farmington,
Okay.
Connecticut. I learned everything from TV to radio to weather to everything in between. And podcasting was one of the courses. And once I graduated,
Oh,
that's
nice.
something I wanted to do was podcasting.
And there's a lot that goes into it in the background. There's
Oh
a
yeah,
lot that goes into just this little hobby of a podcast that I got going on. It's a lot of prep work. It's a lot of prep work, and it's a lot of post production. I mean,
Here,
if I can even call it post production, I mean that's a stretch for what I'm doing.
let me add to that. It's the fact
Go for
that
it.
Super Retro Throwback Reviews is a one-man show. I just brought on a co-host after 2 years. I had a co-host my first year, but she left to pursue other projects. I finally brought on another co-host, but I still run all the social medias. I still do all the research for all the reviews. I edit everything. I book the guests. I take care of, all the legalities and stuff with getting to the cons and financial wise equipment. So if you want to do a podcast for anyone listening out there, I do a podcasting class. If you're in the Connecticut area, I teach podcasting go to New London adulteducation.edu and just look for podcasting 101. But yeah,
There's a lot to. All right, so for one of your audio episodes, about how much time for discussion's sake, about how much time per hour of raw audio does it take to edit one of your episodes?
Well, that's the thing. I mean, if I went to broadcasting school and I learned the proper way to edit. When I was in the school, they taught us, they gave us something to edit, and then we had a deadline. We had like 15 minutes to edit it.
Okay.
So I learned to edit on the fly. So I record my episode and I edit it with my hearing. So I'm hearing the episode and I edit the breaths. I edit like a screw up, and it takes me, I don't know, close to 30 minutes to an hour, if that.
Okay. See, I need to learn how to do it properly because it takes me much, much longer than that. In the beginning, it was taking me almost 4 hours of time to edit an hour's worth of raw audio because I did not learn how to do any of this the proper way. I basically said, okay, I've got Audacity, the freeware open source version of an audio editor, and I'm going to listen to everything. I'm going to try to adjust volume levels, but at the same time, I'm learning how to operate the program at the same time. I'm trying to snip out what I can. I'm trying to smooth things out very, very ham-fistedly, if that's even a word, but we'll use it for now.
Yeah. I mean, it also depends on the program you use. You use Audacity. I use Audition. A couple of people I know use GarageBand, but for me, the primary is Audition because that's what I learned to use, and that's probably the best program out there, in my opinion.
Well, it's powerful. It is very powerful. It's clunky in the way that all open source is clunky, but it will do just about everything that you need it to do once you figure out where the options are and how the filters operate and how you can adjust the variables therein. It'll do just about everything you need once you figure it out. So, and if I remember correctly, which I hope I can do that, you go to quite a few cons over the year. Or
I do.
Each year, I should say.
We cover almost a lot of conventions in the New England area. When we met at Empire State Comic-Con, that was the first time we went outside of New England to cover a convention. And
right, because New York is not part of New England. We are like North Atlantic states or something like that. But
pretty much. But we got invited to go out there.
Nice.
The folks at Altered Reality were very nice enough to invite us to go out there. But we cover
awesome people over there. Awesome people at Altered Reality.
They are. We cover pretty much any convention from Boston to Connecticut to Massachusetts. We haven't covered New Hampshire, Vermont, or Maine yet, but horror, comic, gamer cons, we've done Retro World Expo in Hartford. We've done Terrificon in Mohegan Sun. We've done GamerCon in Mohegan Sun. We've done,
Nice.
for the first time this year, we're doing PAX East. But
Oh, nice.
So it gets exhausting. I mean, but this year we're doing something different this year. We're going to be doing as many booths as possible because we want to get our name out there more. So
Gotcha.
our first booth for our first con of the year is CT GamerCon. And then our other booth of the year is at CT Horror Fest in Naugatuck, Connecticut in September. As for other conventions, you can go to our website and see what we have, but I'll mention that at the very end of the show.
Sure. Oh, yeah, we'll do the end of show plugs. Don't you worry about that. And you're going to have to let me know what your experiences are working a booth or a table at a con versus walking around and interviewing people as an attendee or as a press attendee. I'm not sure what the proper term would be. Instead of rocking a press pass, what it's like in your experiences compared to working a booth. Because for me, I haven't had enough of a draw or an audience to be able to attain press pass, which, oh, by the way, this year I've actually received press credentials for several cons already. In my previous episode with Ray Armerly, we had mentioned the Hudson Valley GamerCon coming back to the Albany Convention Center, or I should say being at the convention center where the Empire State Con was. I am on the media pass list for that. So awesome. I'll be able to see everyone who's going to that. Also, the Empire Gamer Expo over at the Red Line Hotel in Albany, I was able to get press credentials for that as well. So I'll be able to start seeing people. I will not have a booth this time or at either of these conventions, but I will be walking around. I'm working on getting some additional things to hand out, something above and beyond just the regular business card. But it'll be interesting to see what I'm able to accomplish walking around with press credentials as opposed to manning a booth, because I feel it's tough with a podcast. It's tough and it's expensive as a podcast because you're not actually selling anything. Right. So it is 100% pure expense, especially if you want to support any of the other local artists or other vendors at the con, because that's just additional money that you're spending.
Yeah, I mean, it is a my advice for podcasters that are just starting to get into the industry, and that's your basis. You want to do Comic Cons, you want to do movies and pop culture, and you want to have a booth. I recommend doing booths first before and get your name. Start building your credibility up before you apply for press, because you're going to have to meet their qualifications.
Oh, sure.
So
you've got more experience with that than I do, even though I've been able to start building a name. So why don't we talk about what convention organizers are looking for podcasters or other people who are looking to get press credentials?
Well, pretty much cut and dry. From generally a convention is looking for, if you've covered their convention before, that's like a guarantee that you'll probably come back. If you have a good amount of subscribers followers on your social media pages. I know Altered Reality has upped their followers on Facebook and Twitter to over 1,000.
Crap.
Yeah.
Oh, well, yeah. Well, still working, still building.
Right. There are some people that are pretty lenient. The smaller cons are just like, I mean, if you're good, go ahead, but if you're just going to walk around for free, then we won't let you, Which,
I mean, things you got to understand. Business is business, and business is going to have to business. They can't just give free passes to anyone who says, oh, yeah, I have a website, or I do a blog, or I do a podcast. Well, show me that you're doing something.
Right. When we have our press passes, we use the press passes the right way. And when when the convention emails us and tells us what we can and cannot do, we abide by those rules.
Oh, Jesus.
Basically,
You would think that's common sense, right?
right. As some
You would
people don't,
think.
some people don't abide by those rules, but we abide by them. We follow them because we are pretty much representing them for a weekend, and we're representing us as well. We're showing, perfect example, Rhode Island Comic Con. You know, we love going to Rhode Island Comic Con. We had a press pass for the first time last year.
Nice.
We covered their panels. We got to interview people. There were certain people we couldn't interview. There were certain people we could interview. So some conventions will give you guidelines, you know, don't ask for free autographs, don't do this, don't do that. But there are certain things that you have to abide by if you have a press pass. And it's very vital if you go into this industry and you go down this route that you have to abide by their rules.
It's basic professionalism as far as I'm concerned. So going back to your
Correct.
point of how you're representing the con and the organizers of the con. Basically, if you go into an area or into a convention or an expo or whatever you want to call it, and you have press credentials, that means that you've been vetted by the organizer in that you are a legitimate either news outlet or member of the community, content creator, or something to that effect. Like you've been vetted and you represent now the quality and type of people that they allow into their events. If you give a celebrity guest or other vendor a bad experience, that tells them you are the quality of people that come to these events organized by this company, and that will dictate whether they want to come back to that event or not. Fair enough?
Correct.
Okay, so in all things business, because as much as we're having fun, yeah, it's business. Yeah, it's business. Be a professional. And as much as we would all love to get free stuff, because free stuff is awesome, right? Free stuff is awesome. But don't go in expecting, because the other side of this business is, and I've had to explain some of these things to other friends and family, the signatures and photographs of the celebrities, for example, yeah, they cost money because that's their income.
And that's
Right.
how they get it. Because people don't know this, but the money that they're making for these autographs and pictures, they're getting a big percentage taken out of it because the convention is going to get a percentage of it. Their agents are going to get a percentage out of it, and they're the studio they represent. Like, let's say,
Okay, so it gets cut several times. Go ahead.
Right. So let's say, I don't know, Robert Downey Jr. shows up for a convention, and he charges, I don't know, $100 for a photograph and autograph combo, and which would be very low. For someone that's been in 20 Marvel movies, it'd be like $300.
I was going to say 100 sounds pretty low, because I was able to get Ryan Hurst's autograph, and I think that was maybe $30. I'm being very hesitant with my memory right now. I want to say $30 or $40 to get his autograph, and I purchased his photograph headshot from another vendor that was on site. So for Robert Downey Jr. to charge, $100 for a autograph, that's lowballing.
This was just in my mind. I wasn't thinking at the time, but back to what I was saying.
For conversation's sake,
we'll go with that. For conversation's sake, if he charges $300 for a photo autograph combo, times $300 times pretty much, I don't know how many people attend a regular convention center, fire code wise. Let's say 2,000 people. If they don't fill up the building and don't shut the building down to the fire marshal, times 3 days, then you divide that by agent's percentage, then you divide that by the convention organizers, then you divide that by the studio. So if Robert Downey Jr. is working for Marvel and Disney is going to take a big chunk out of it.
Yeah, they're not going to see 100% of the cash that you're handed over to them.
Long
The business
story
is
short.
yeah, long story short, they're not going to see all of that. And plus, if they are at the convention, and that means that they are not on set filming a movie, which ultimately means they're not currently getting paid at that time. Sure,
Right.
people who are in the upper echelon of celebrity hood, they're not starving. I get that, but it's still business. This is still part of their income. This is part of their branding. So just expect to pay. And of course, it'll scale appropriately with the level of celebrity of the individual that you're speaking to. So some of the lesser known, they may not charge as much. But as you move higher up into some of the A-listers, hey, if you want to get this person's autograph, well, you're going to have to pay for it.
Correct.
And proportionally as much. Oh, man. So what cons you got coming up?
So like I mentioned earlier, we have CT GamerCon March 23rd, 24th at Mohegan Sun Convention Center in Uncasville, Connecticut. It's pretty much right in our backyard.
Yeah, for you, right?
Right. We have a booth. We'll be doing live podcast recordings all weekend. So if you're in the area, come say hi to us. We will be doing a raffle at our booth. 10% of the proceeds will go to No Kid Hungry. We're only doing one raffle prize a day. So it's a Saturday and a Sunday. So Saturday, we're raffling off 3 Kiss comics. The reason is because that night, Kiss is playing at Mohegan Sun Arena. So I figured, why the heck not?
Well, right. Nice.
The final day, the 24th, we're raffling off 2 tickets for people that sponsor our podcast. The guy that does the double features I mentioned earlier, he donated 2 tickets to his next double feature in April 20th. That he's going to show Nightmare on Elm Street, Nightmare on Elm Street 2.
Nice.
So,
all right. And going on? What you got, brother? Do it up. What you got?
Sorry about that. So we have we also have PAX East the following weekend. We're only going Friday. We didn't get approved for press. We're just going to go because we've never been before. We're going just to check it out. Then we have Terrificon, which is in August, and I think it's August 18th through the 20th. I'm not 100% sure. We have press passes, and it's again at Mohegan Sun. We love this convention. We love it. We love it. We love it. Mm-hmm. And then the final convention of the year, that might change, but we have CT Horror Fest. We have a booth. We'll be doing live podcast recordings at CT Horror Fest, which is a horror convention in Naugatuck, Connecticut. We will have more conventions. We just haven't heard back from the other conventions we're talking to, but we're currently talking with them. So I can't say anything more about that.
Okay, nice. And real quickly, since we're talking about events that are coming up, March 30th, I will be at the Hudson Valley GamerCon, big old esports tournament going on at the Albany Capitol Center. Looking farther into the future, May 11th, I'm going to be in Johnstown, New York at the Towing Around Block Party. So if you've hit any of the cons in the Capital Region area, if you've seen Towing Around Shop, they are having their own block party in May. And July 13th, that will be the Empire Game Expo, again at the Red Line Hotel in Albany. All right, time for an Audible interlude. For you, the listeners of Videogame Crosstalk podcast, Audible is offering a free audiobook download with a free 30-day trial to give you the opportunity to check out their service. All you have to do is go to audibletrial.com/VGXTpod and sign up for your free trial and download one of over 180,000 titles, such as Kitchen Confidential, authored and narrated by Anthony Bourdain. Steve, you a fan of Anthony Bourdain?
My No, I'm not really.
Okay. All right, a little awkward transition there. I was
Yeah.
now that's fine. I became a huge fan of him years ago when my sister and my nieces were visiting us, and they just turned on his No Reservation show when it was like in its height, and I just thought, who is this guy? I related to him on some bizarre, cynical level, and it was just it was fantastic and refreshing to get such an honest review of things. And Kitchen Confidential is one of his first books, and it's really just a collection of stories and bits. It really does lack structure, but it is such an amazing read as far as what happens and what goes on in the kitchen industry.
Yeah.
So it's definitely worth the read if you ever get the chance to do it. And if you want, audibletrial.com/VGXTpod, you can download that title and many more for free. Okay, moving on into some tech and geekery. First one I've got up, and I want to stem this into a larger discussion, but it all starts with Into the Badlands. The series on AMC it will be canceled after this final season. So, Steve, did you watch Into the Badlands when it was on? I mean, it's still going to be on, but
no. To be honest, I'm actually behind on shows because, like I said, I work 2 days a week, and then I do the podcast. So between what I do in my podcast, movie, music, and video games, I listen to a lot of music, I watch a lot of movies, I play a lot of video games. So
it's a lot to take in. It's a lot to
Right.
take in. Yeah, I watch very little TV, if any at all. But Into the Badlands, I was able to catch the majority of it. I was able to catch some previous episodes either on demand when I actually had time to actually watch it, or just catch up on Netflix. I think the first 2 seasons are on Netflix, if you can get a chance for that. But where I really want to take this discussion, I want to use this more as a launch pad for it. But cable TV, it just seems to keep getting worse and worse. And I thought we had reached the climax of the quote reality TV series, end quote. But apparently anything that actually has a story behind it just gets canceled unless it is an absolute like blockbuster of a series. Would you agree with that statement?
I do, and I think we're seeing the rise of paid. I don't know how to say it, but let me try to explain it. You download an app and you can watch it on your phone or your smart thing.
Yes.
You have
web series or streaming exclusive, something like to that effect.
Yeah, because there are channels on TV that now have an app, and you can just watch it on your TV now. You don't have to get a cable box. So I think we're seeing the death of cable and the rise of technology just taking over.
There's a term for, I want to say, over the wire. I'm going to have to look into this, and hopefully I can remember to drop a link for what the official term is for that. But there is like an over the net or over the wire streaming. Like there's an official term. I apologize for my ineptitude at the current time, but I'll drop it in the show notes. But I absolutely agree with that. And what I have in the show notes is, would this show or other shows like it fare better if they were a streaming service exclusive?
Yes. Going to piggyback to the Marvel Netflix stuff.
Do it up.
Because, perfect example, recently Daredevil and Jessica Jones got canceled. Daredevil.
The entirety of the Marvel Netflix series have officially been
Punisher, not Daredevil.
Yes. I was going to say the entirety of the Marvel Netflix series have officially been canceled off of Netflix.
Right. So to what you were saying, yes, I disagree. I mean, people can't afford, $30 a month for CBS All Access. Even though I want to see the new Twilight Zone thing with Jordan Peele, but I'm not going to fork over $30 just to see Twilight Zone, the series, again. But for Disney Plus, for just to see Jessica Jones and The Punisher and Loki and Scarlet and Vision, it's, they're making their money, but is it worth it? I'm not sure what the standard cable bill is in America right now, but is it worth doing the whole paying the 30 for the CBS All Access, the 40 for the HBO, I don't know how much Disney Plus is going to be. If you add all that up, it's pretty much a standard monthly cable bill.
That's what it's getting to. If you want to watch all of these shows. So my wife has a Netflix account and we've been using that. I've got my own profile on it, but that's, besides the point. So we pay for internet. We do pay for cable only because it's the way that our bundling worked. I think it was only like an additional $10. It was really cheap, but I got to actually make sure that I'm still getting that promotional rate. But it's fairly cheap for now. And if we were to start moving into, say, Hulu or Amazon Prime Video, or, God forbid we get into the CBS All Access or I don't see us getting the Disney Plus at this point. Who knows what the future is going to bring? But yeah, people have been cutting the cord for several years and just using the streaming services for their television watching. And then Netflix just started killing it with their own in-house produced programming. I mean, just killing it. A few misses, of course, nothing ventured, nothing gained, but there are a few misses. But with the Marvel series in particular, that's a little bit of an oddball because Disney starting their own streaming service, that's pretty much why they were canceled off of Netflix. And these in particular, Netflix is tracking everyone's activity, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, they know through a data perspective. I talked about, again, going back to Ray Umerly's previous episode, they don't see this person's individual name. This person likes this, that, and the other thing. It is Netflix subscriber 013A blah, blah, blah. These are the data trends and markers for their viewing habits. But they know, based on all the big data analytics, that the people who have been watching these Marvel shows are current Netflix subscribers to begin with. And they also watch several other Netflix exclusive programs. So by canceling these shows, they are very unlikely to lose many subscribers. And plus, they really didn't. It's tough to say how many people they actually gained, like new subscribers they gained from showing the Marvel series. So you have limited growth and limited decrease, or limited growth from having the shows, limited decrease from canceling the shows. And by maintaining the Marvel series, or if they were to continue the Marvel series, that would be partial advertising for a competing service, right?
Right.
So unfortunately, it makes proper business sense. But man, I can't take any more of these reality shows. This is why I don't watch TV in general. Except for very few programs. Go ahead.
I never watch. I mean, I'll have the TV on in the background when I'm editing my podcast, but I'll give you a perfect example. I'm not a fan of MMA, but right. I get free tickets at my job.
Nice.
And we got free tickets to an MMA fight. It was last Friday. It was televised. It was on the Paramount Network. It was Mitrone versus Kamadranov, whatever it was.
Okay. I haven't watched MMA in a long time, but go ahead.
The people listening, they probably know what I'm going to talk about because it was a top trending thing on Twitter. I'm glad my tickets were free because I feel bad for all the people that paid that paid for a ticket and went to see it because 15 minutes into the fight, guy got kicked in the nuts and the fight just ended. But, you know, I'm going off a little topic here, but the fact that I'm not, there's some things I'll watch and there's some things I won't watch, you know, but like I said, I usually earlier, I'm focused on movies, music, and video games for my podcast. You know, I don't have time for TV.
Yeah.
It took me a month and a half to watch both seasons of The Punisher because I can only take 3 episodes at a time. If I'm doing, if I'm reviewing an episode, reviewing a Netflix show, and I have to watch the entire season, I can only do 3 episodes at a time because my brain can only digest so much.
Right.
I'm not a Netflix binger like other people. So it's kind of, what's the word? Overwhelming to binge an entire show. I binge watched season 2 of Stranger Things when it came out. And I was just knacked and tired after doing that because it was, 10 episodes? I couldn't do that. I can only do 3 episodes at a time. So.
Yeah. So I feel like I feel like that the shows that actually have high production costs, because Into the Badlands in particular, that could not have been a cheap show to produce. There's a lot of backdrops and sets, and the costumes were amazing for all the characters. I mean, it must have had a significant amount of overhead, while by comparison, the reality type shows, you're just following around eccentric people and manufacturing drama from the narrative. So I mean, the overhead for that's got to be minimal by comparison.
And it's no stranger that Into the Badlands is in its final season because it's following a trend of other shows that are in its final season. Walking Dead is nearing its final season. Game of Thrones is in its final season. So there are these shows are probably in its final season because of what we just talked about, the rise of the app streamings.
Yeah, well, Walking Dead needs to end as a television series. That just needs to end. And Game of Thrones, I mean, they've been I never read the book series, but I do have friends who have, and we have our little, it's almost like a little book club talk at the end of every episode, and they tell us like where they stuck to the original plot line, which plot lines kind of got combined for the sake of a television series and stuff like that. But yeah, it's definitely a trend. But if that's where the quality content is going to be, then people are going to have to buck up for the additional streaming services. So moving on, Alita Battle Angel. Now, I wasn't originally expecting to discuss this bit, but like, was it 2 days ago you posted your mobile review for this? And
I posted my mobile movie review, and we also debuted a new segment on our audio podcast where we talk about the movies that we saw between each episode. And we talk about it more in depth on there as well. So,
we're going to talk about it a little more in depth right now. So, begin with overall impressions. What were your thoughts on it?
So, let me just say before we talk about it, I didn't see the OVA before I saw this movie. After I saw this movie, I did see the OVA with my cousin, and we recorded an episode, the segment, in our audio podcast where we talked about it more in detail. But anyway, before, first impression, I enjoyed it. It's not like a certain movie, the anime adaptation a few years ago that was smashed in whitewashing controversy. I think Robert Rodriguez was very faithful to the OVA, very faithful to the manga, and it was very, very, very good. I love Robert Rodriguez and his work, Planet Terror, From Dusk Till Dawn, Desperado. He is a great director, and when I saw the OVA like a day later, he nailed it.
Nice.
He shot for shot, and seeing it in
Really?
3D.
Okay.
Seeing it in 3D is a lot better. It makes it shine. So
would this be a movie that you would suggest seeing in 3D if it was an option?
yes.
Okay. I was actually talking
And
to. Go ahead.
as for putting it into my top 10 films of the year, not yet, because we have 2 Marvel movies, 3 if you count Spider-Man, but
Yeah. I was mentioning it to
there are it's too early to put a movie like this in top 10. I usually do that top 10 list in November,
Yeah.
and then I start making my final decision, but this would be a candidate.
I was joking with some friends at the office saying that I don't expect this movie to win any awards as far as story is concerned. The cinematography was great. The visuals were fantastic. The choreography was phenomenal. But as far as the visuals and the editing and stuff like that is concerned, where it really shined, it's like, you're going against 2 Marvel movies this year, and it's only February. So, like, as amazing as the visuals were, because they were legitimately fantastic, as far as winning awards, you got an Avengers and Captain Marvel coming through fairly soon. So,
Right.
got to slow that roll a little bit.
Speaking of which, we're recording this, when I'm not sure when this comes out, but today, the day we're recording this, the reviews for Captain Marvel came out, and
I haven't seen them yet.
they're very positive, and I'm excited for Captain Marvel.
Mm-hmm.
I was a little skeptical because they didn't show much and they didn't give much. Yeah, it's hard to explain. We talked about this in one of my rants on the recent podcast episode about giving too much away in the trailer, but I really wasn't. I could care less if they give a lot away in the trailer or not, but it was. I'm looking forward to it. So
nice. So, also with this conversation, you are maybe the 3rd or 4th person that I've talked to that praised the movie Alita Battle Angel for being very true to its original source material.
Yeah,
that is so good to hear. I've complained about that concept on multiple episodes where it's just like Hollywood. I know you're trying to adapt it for a broader audience for money reasons, but at the same time, and I just don't understand why this is such a cliche. Like, it happens every single time. Your original source material has a following for a reason. It has a following in the current state that it exists, the current story that is being told or was told. That is what the fandom is. That is the form in the story that has the following. Why do you water it down and change it for a mass appeal? Because every time that happens, it sucks.
let me interject to this in a little bit because I have my gripes about Hollywood too. Not to piggyback with what you were saying, but Hollywood, if you're gonna remake a film, do your research on it, because there are people that don't like remakes of films. Listen to the people, because it's not all about you and it's not all about the money. They're perfect example, Total Recall in 2012. I was dead set against it, and I remember filing a petition against it. I used to think I was the only one that filed a petition against it, but still, people went to see it. People hated it. I warned all of you that it sucked, but no one listened. People still went to see it. It's just, if you're gonna remake a movie, Pet Sematary is a perfect example. And back to my audio podcast that just came out this week. we talked about this in great detail. They gave a lot away, but they're really not giving a lot away because they're being original to their story. Stephen King did something revolutionary with Pet Sematary. The movie followed the book. This is going to follow the book, but it has a twist to it. But it gave it away in the trailer, which is back to what I was saying before. But, Hollywood is kind of a mixed bag.
I think they
you get what you get.
They started being better about it around the time of, or I should say, with the Lord of the Rings trilogy way back when. God, did I just say way back when for the Lord of the Rings trilogy? God, I'm old. But that was the first movie series or adaptations of a book where like everyone knew there's fervent, very active, very enthusiastic fan base for that book series. If they did not adhere as closely as they feasibly could, there would be just uproar and it would just get panned across every review outlet. So I think that is where they really started to make the effort for staying true, or as true as feasibly possible. I mean, because you're condensing books, however many hours of content it takes to read a novel versus, even 2.5 hours in a feature length film. There's a lot of compressing that needs to happen. And, sure, we can do more with more convincing CGI at this point, but going back even 10 years, let alone 20 or more, you were limited with what you could do as far as animation or special effects were concerned. But I think Lord of the Rings was like the turning point for staying true to the source material, or at least in a fantasy or sci-fi setting. So bringing it all the way back up to today and the movie of discussion, it is so great to hear, again, from multiple people, multiple sources, saying that they stay true to the original content. That is fabulous and makes me want to see the original much more, just to see where differences were made. And just to, I watched anime back in the 90s. I'd love to see this one. This one I actually missed during the day.
And to be honest, I'm not a huge fan of anime. The only anime I've seen in my entire lifetime was Full Metal Alchemist. So,
and I'm hoping it was Full Metal Alchemist Brotherhood.
The original Full Metal Alchemist.
Oh, you need to erase that out of your memory and watch Full Metal Alchemist Brotherhood. So much better. So much better. But that is for another discussion on another day.
Anyway, back to the OVA. Definitely check out the OVA.
Yeah.
I was saying this on the audio podcast because I think the OVA, is a lot better than the movie.
Okay. All right, final headline for this episode. This is going into my Capital Region Unlocked series. A new degree in programming for game design is going to be coming to one of our community colleges in the fall of 2019. So this is at Schenectady County Community College here in the Capital Region. And they recently announced that they will be offering an associate's degree in game design. And I have to give credit to Schenectady because they are on top of the new trends. To people who live in the Capital Region, you're not going to find this as surprising, but as you move outside of our little area, we recently received the go-ahead from the state government to start opening some casinos here in New York. So this is new to us within the past few years.
Don't you guys already have a casino, Turning Stone?
We have a few. Turning Stone is in the state of New York. However, that is on one of the Indian reservations.
Okay.
So it's not technically in the state. It's on the reservation. So however those legalities shake out. So we got the go ahead for casinos in the state itself, and I sincerely apologize if I'm phrasing this incorrectly. It's not my intent to be disrespectful. So outside of the reservations, we now have a few casinos, and one of these casinos actually was built very close to the college. And they jumped right on that as soon as they could and developed a curriculum for casino management and gaming. So they actually, a curriculum that involved, how to properly manage a casino floor and dealing for blackjack and other casino games and stuff like that. So they're definitely on the pulse of what's happening.
Nice.
And part of the reason why I've been focusing on the whole Capital Region Unlocked is, as I said in my previous episode, there's a lot of stuff happening around here. And yeah, game design just keeps getting bigger and bigger. What kind of games are you into, Steve?
Well, I'm obviously, with the title of our podcast, Super Retro Throwback Reviews, I'm more into the old school games, from Atari to N64 to even GameCube to the original Xbox, But I still will play, an Xbox One, or, I've been playing, I just played earlier today, Tetris 99, and I hit 5th place, in a round. That game.
So what is Tetris 99? I've been hearing about it or seeing it on my Twitter feed. What's going on with that?
So Tetris 99 is a battle royale where you're playing Tetris against 98 other people.
Okay.
So you have to place first if you can, but they're going to try and sabotage you, or they're going to try and knock you out
It's amazing. Even Tetris has joined the battle royale.
But
craze.
It's really addicting, and it's really clever how they do it. But the fact I made 5th place, and I posted it on our Super Retro Throwback Reviews Instagram and Tetris Official.
I think I saw that. Yeah, I think I saw that.
Yeah, they
well done,
acknowledged
sir.
it.
Well done.
Yeah, so thank you, Tetris Official, for acknowledging us. But anyway, we're adaptable to any system, but retro is something that hits close to home to us. So,
all right, cool. Yeah, so I just wanted to throw it out there that if you're in the Capital Region of New York, if you're one of my local listeners, Schenectady County Community College has gotten the approval and will be launching a game design curriculum. It's an AS, so it's only an associate's. It's not a full bachelor's degree, but definitely can start you off properly. And now we're going to move on to some listener questions. First up, we got Judge Greg at Judge Greg is Law, and he actually has 2 questions for us. So thanks, Greg, for reaching out to us. First question, thoughts on the trailer for Frozen 2?
All right, so I have never seen Frozen. I have friends who have kids, and they're obsessed with it. So obviously I know it's a Disney film, and I'm not a big fan of musicals. That is another conversation for another time. I have no interest in Frozen, nor do I have interest in Frozen 2.
Okay, fair enough. I have been able to see Frozen. It was enjoyable. My son Jacob, he is about 2.5-ish right now, so he's still not into the whole Disney thing. He still loves the Disney store that we have in one of our shopping malls. I don't know how or why it happens, but apparently Disney designs all of their aesthetics to appeal to young children, whether they have any concept of Mickey Mouse or not. But he loves it.
The magical wall.
It really is, though. Like, I think he was still an infant at the time. He wasn't even walking. We were just taking him for a walk, like inside the mall, because it was freezing outside. And he's in his stroller, and he just starts like babbling and reaching towards the store out of his stroller, towards the Disney store. And we're like, I guess we're going inside the Disney store right now. It's interesting, though. They're taking a kind of darker approach to the film or to the story. So there are many questions that are clearly unanswered, as in, why is Elsa on an island kind of by herself, and she's trying to escape by running across the water? Don't know what's going on there. Her and her crew look a little more on the badass side. Don't know really what's going on, so I'm hopeful. I'm actually kind of looking for. Don't know if I'm going to see it in theaters, but I'm definitely looking forward to it. The second question from Judge Greg: who should play Batman? And I'm just going to say not Ben Affleck.
Yeah, definitely not Ben Affleck, and definitely not Rob Pattinson, because if you follow Super Retro Throwback Reviews on Facebook, we voiced our opinion on that. Say what you want about Twilight. Twilight is one of those films you either love it or hate it. I hate Twilight.
I hated everything about Twilight. I was working a second job at the time when the books were very popular. I had no idea what it was all about. But I remembered... I just remember I was like stocking boxes in the back room, and I'd bring product out to the floor. Again, this was like a second job for me. And I kept bringing out more and more copies of this Twilight series. And I had like no idea what it was about. It looks quasi-fantasy-ish, not really sure. And I heard some other people talking about it. Yeah, there's like vampires and werewolves. I'm like, all right, cool. I can get behind that. And then I heard about the kicker. That the vampires glowed or sparkled in the sunlight because they're so beautiful, and that's when the record skipped off the track for me.
Right. And I have family that live out in Washington State. We ventured way out into Twilight Country. We ventured out into Forks.
All right.
And I kid you not, over 100 screaming emo kids still, 10 years after that film came out, having Robert Pattinson as Batman is going to make 11 times that increase of emo kids in Forks. And all I'm going to say is the best part of Forks was in the rearview mirror.
Okay. Oh man. But really, I have no idea who I would choose as Batman. Like, I just can't.
To answer your question,
no one's come to mind.
I would like to see Michael Keaton again. Maybe as an older Batman. I mean, I have a soft spot for Michael Keaton as Batman because that's the one I grew up with. But that's just my opinion. I really don't know who would fill in the Batsuit because there's so many people. Adam West, rest in peace. Michael Keaton, Val Kilmer.
I mean, those are
debatable.
Big shoes to fill.
But
it's big shoes to fill, no doubt about that. But a lot of the actors that are coming to mind already have standing roles over on the Marvel side, and I just am not familiar enough with some of the other up and coming actors. Although maybe the guy, well, you say you don't watch too much TV, but there was Altered Carbon on Netflix.
Never heard of it.
It was one of their original programming. And the main guy from that, who I can't remember, but through the magic of the internet, one moment, please.
Yep.
Beep, beep, boop, beep, boop, 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 beep. What was the main dude's name? Joel Kinnaman.
Oh, the guy in Suicide Squad and the guy in RoboCop, the remake.
He was in House of Cards. Yes, Rick Flag in Suicide Squad.
And he was Murphy in the reboot of RoboCop.
Okay. So I did not see either of those. Suicide Squad looked interesting, and then it just got panned by the critics. So I said, pass then. And yes, Alex Murphy in RoboCop. So potentially Joel Kinnaman? Yes, no, maybe? Thoughts? All right, I'll accept that. Hell, I'm more of a gamer. I don't know what I'm talking about as far as TV series
No,
are
I
concerned.
mean we're in my territory. I mean we're in movies, but
Indeed. Yeah, this is definitely your wheelhouse.
but when it comes, you have to have the right person. If you're gonna have someone like George Clooney, you know, um, you can't have another George Clooney. You really can't have another George Clooney. You have to have someone like a Michael Keaton. Something that person has to have charisma, like Christian Bale. You have to have someone
Okay.
that has to have swagger, like Christian Bale. You have to have someone that can be a real have that Bruce Wayne smile, like Michael Keaton. That
Mm.
they can't have a growly voice like Christian Bale. You know, they can't
Yeah,
be
not really sure where that came from, but whatever.
right. You have to draw a line. You have to. Even with the animated series, you have to draw a line in the sand with um, Batman and finding the actor, because each actor has their own standard and practices of doing method acting. Leo DiCaprio is a perfect example. There are multiple movies where he could have gotten an Oscar, and
Oh yeah. Oh, he's so grimy. He's so good when he's grimy.
right. And if he was cast as Batman, do you think he would be a good Batman?
No. I
Okay,
could,
because he's method
it
acting.
might be a bit of a knee-jerk reaction to that, but no.
Right.
No.
So it's finding the right actor, finding the right person who can fill those shoes, but they also have to research the people before them. Adam West, rest in peace. The people before them. It's not just making it their own. So that's just my 2 cents on that.
Right. That's a very good question.
Sorry, I went off on a tangent about it.
Hey, man, that's where all the good conversations happen. All right, so thank you for those questions. Judge Greg, by the way, is also the host of Real Hero Talk and the Gamers Without Border podcast. So he's a busy man over there. And also, we have a late entry from Chris Osborne, host of Stories from a Bar podcast, which I've guested on a few times, and I've had him over here a couple of times. And I'm sure we'll be swapping podcast episodes in the future as well. He asks, what has been his favorite, and I'm assuming he's talking to you, Steve, what has been your favorite part of running Super Retro Throwback Reviews? Hashtag AskVGST.
Well, my favorite part of Super Retro Throwback Reviews, and since its inception 3 years ago, I've done so much with Super Retro Throwback Reviews. I've met people, networked with other podcasters, but on the flip side, I've encountered other podcasters who are, I'm not going to say their names, but they're real assholes. I've encountered other podcasters who only care about themselves, and that's not what the industry is all about. But for something that was really memorable, I mentioned it briefly earlier, but you were in the building for this, but you weren't actually near me for this. I got to interview David Ellefson at Empire State Comic-Con. I got to interview him for my Empire State Comic-Con coverage episode. And 2 months later, I'm at work, and then I noticed that my numbers have spiked, but I don't know why. So I look online at my numbers, and I do a search on my podcast. And then I find out that my podcast got quoted by blabbermouth.net for my interview with David Ellefson. So I was blown away by it. That is a highlight for Super Retro Throwback Reviews, to answer your question, Stories from a Bar. But another highlight would be doing my own panel.
Yeah, and that is definitely a goal of mine. But continue. Go ahead.
And getting to interact and meet with new people, getting to interact and make friends with other podcasters. It's interesting, getting to travel all over the place. You can have a podcast where you can do a podcast on politics. You can do a podcast on baseball or sports. You could do a baseball or podcast on Game of Thrones or whatever. Whatever you want to
Mhm.
do a podcast on, you can do it. There's podcasts for everything, cooking, hardware,
Absolutely everything. That's
pretty
one of the
much.
great things about it.
But for my podcast, I have to put a lot of hard work in it. Like I said earlier, I'm pretty much the run everything. I run all 3 social media outlets. I edit everything. I record everything. I'm literally working 5 days a week on my podcast, but I'm working my 9 to 5 job, but it's really 3 p.m. to 1 a.m. job, 2 days a week. So
Yeah, you're rocking the night shift.
right. So I'm for 3 years, I've been busting my rear end, and it pays off in the long run. So I apologize for the long the long answer stories from a bar, but all I can say is the harder you work, the luckier you get.
Yeah. Luck is when preparation meets opportunity.
Yep.
All right, so that wraps it up for the listener questions. Time to move into the final 5. At the end of every episode, I ask each guest 5 questions. The first 2 are always the same. The last 3 have a theme, and they range from irrelevant to irreverent. Here we go. First question, coffee or tea?
I would have to go with coffee, not just because we have a coffee company as our sponsor, but because coffee keeps us going and keeps us fueled. But also we have a coffee thing as our sponsor for our podcast.
So yeah, we're going to go with coffee for that one.
Yes.
You want to give them a quick shout out? I'll allow it.
Give a shout out. I want to give a shout out to Deadly Grounds Coffee. They're amazing. If you go to a convention and you see a coffee distributor there and they have a coffin behind them, that's Deadly Grounds Coffee. They're the only coffee company in New England that can drive around in a hearse and sell coffee from a coffin. They are amazing. They have 12 different flavors that can keep a vampire awake day and night. We're happy to have them as one of the 3 sponsors for our podcast, and they are the official fuel of Super Retro Throwback Reviews.
You hear that, Deathwish Coffee? Your move. All right. So, second question. So, I know you do some video games. Do you play any tabletop games?
Yes. Even though my social circle is a bit smaller in my town, I mean, my podcasting social circle is big, but you guys, are in New York, Massachusetts, Maine, and other parts of Connecticut. But my social circle, interacting with other people, that I went to school with, I can't just invite them to my house and play D&D because some of them are in other parts of the country and all that stuff. So as for tabletop games, there's a tabletop game that's been gathering dust because I have it and I want to play it, but I don't have 4 other players to play it. It's called The Thing, Escape from Outpost 31. And the other one,
Okay.
a couple of my podcasting friends gave me, and it's called Movie Buff.
Okay. So is that, I'm assuming, some type of trivia game?
It is. It's a card game, but it makes you think. And it's really, really good. And there are a couple tabletop games that I want to get this year, especially with Toy Fair that just came out. It's just finding people to play them with.
Gotcha. And if you really want to get moving on the D&D front, I believe it's roll20.org, something like that. Again, I'll throw on a link into the show notes. This was discussed when I had Kinetic on a while back, but there is an online platform specifically for like over the internet Dungeons and Dragons and other tabletop RPG type games where it's got virtual dice rolling and things of that nature. So just throwing it out there. All right. And now moving into the last 3. And these are a surprise to you. So we're going with the retro theme, or just working with the name of Super Retro Throwback Reviews. So question number 3. For you, how old is retro?
For retro, for me, it would have to be 1999 or lower. You know, it would have to be anything
Pre-2000?
pre-2000.
You know what? I would agree with that.
Anything past 2000 is, okay. It's just that millennium, end of the millennium, this side of the millennium. That's, if you hear me in my reviews, I'll say this side of the millennium, or,
Okay, I'm glad you went back to at least the 90s. There is a tabletop club at my office, and I've heard some of the younger coworkers mention something about one of the earlier Final Fantasies, and they joked about like, "Oh, it's so retro with their low polygon graphics." I'm like, "Listen here, you little bastards! I'll tell you, I'll tell you what's retro. Back in my day, we had 2-frame animation, and we liked it."
It's going up into the 70s with Atari.
Oh yeah, well, I mean, even like the original Final Fantasy on the Nintendo.
Yeah,
Sure, they gave a different weapon appearance during the attacks, but it was still, you kind of scamper forward a few steps. It gives you 2 or 3 frames of a sword in different positions, and that was about it. Yeah, like back in my day in Final Fantasy, it was Fire 1, Fire 2, and Fire 3, not Fire, Fira, Firaga.
huh.
All right, 4th question. So we're going to put the retro spin on its head a little bit. So rather than giving a retro game the modern treatment, have you considered giving a modern game a retro treatment?
Yes, there are quite a few games there are quite a few games I would like to see get the retro treatment. One big game I would like to see is Halo.
Really?
I would love to see Halo as like a 8 or 16-bit side-scrolling shooter.
Okay. All right. I can see that.
Because if you look on YouTube, there's a video. It's like a minute long, but it shows what Halo would be like if it was a Nintendo startup screen. And it
nice.
blows my mind, and if you think about it, it could be possible.
I think a lot of first-person shooters could go into the side-scrolling aspect. I saw one, it was just a collection of just images, but someone kind of reimagined the Borderlands series as a side-scroller shoot 'em up.
Another one would be Fallout. I mean, if you put it into like SimCity type way.
All right.
And finally,
SimCity Fallout.
Yeah. And finally, we talked about this on the audio podcast briefly, recent episode, but Super Mario Maker, if they did it like Mario Paint.
Okay.
But it's already,
that's
kind of like a polar contrast because that's already retro enough. You're making your own Mario levels, so.
Gotcha. All right. Final question. And this is the review aspect of your podcast name. What was the most brutal review that you've given?
Oh, this one's easy.
Uh-oh.
Because back in November...
This one's got some inspiration behind it. Go for
actually, I have a couple answers to this. So back in November, there was a movie that came out called Suspiria, and it's a remake of the 1977 Italian horror classic from, I forgot the Italian director's name, but Suspiria is garnered as one of the greatest Italian horror films of all time. So what does Hollywood do? They remake it. You have Dakota Johnson, Tilda Swinton, one of the actresses from the original, and my God, it was the worst 2.5 hours of my life. And it's the most viewed video on my YouTube channel, my mobile movie review, because I was brutally honest. I slammed the movie. I literally was, I'm going to say it sucked. It sucked. The movie sucked. And I'm brutally honest in my mobile movie review because I'm recording the review like 5 minutes after I get out of the film. And, I was the only one in the theater, and thank God no one came in because I was shouting at the screen. I was just like, why are you ruining this classic film that we all worship and idolize? Any horror fan that is listening to this right now knows for a fact that Suspiria in 1977 is one of the greatest Italian horror films of all time. It is probably up there in the top 10 horror films of all time. You heard me. But if you remake it, it's like remaking Total Recall. It's like remaking RoboCop. It's bad.
Jeez.
It was bad. But that's one of the, I forgot the question.
Most brutal reviews that you've given.
That's one of the most brutal reviews I've given for the YouTube channel. For the audio podcast, we have a segment called The Rant.
Okay.
And we basically, whatever ticks us off, we go into a rant about it. And basically, I go off for like 5 minutes on, my local beach, charging $40 for admission and another $40 for snacks and food because the state taxes in Connecticut are really, really high. Or to, giving a plot away.
Man, I live in New York, okay?
Or giving the or giving the plot away in a movie, But the one I was really brutally honest about, and, I look back on it and it was probably something I shouldn't have done, but the person really pissed me off. And I gave a brutally honest rant about a certain podcaster. This podcaster threatened to ruin my panel, the first panel I ever did, because I didn't include him in it, and I was brutally honest about it. And, looking back on it, yeah, I shouldn't have done it, but he shouldn't have been a dick. So
there's that.
Yeah.
And that is all the time we have for this episode. Time for end of show plugs. You can find the show notes for this and all previous episodes at videogamecrosstalk.com, as well as all the social media, contacts, and the occasional blog post. Or you can follow me around on Twitter, Instagram, PS4, and Twitch at Hypersyntax, HYP3RSINT4X. As for my guests, Steve and Christina, where can our beautiful listeners follow you around?
So before I get into the plugs, I just want to mention real quick, we have a local newspaper called The Day, and it's Southeastern Connecticut's prestigious newspaper. They have a contest going on right now called the Best of 2019 Awards, and they have a category called Best Local / Podcast Host. We are the only podcast in that category right now that is up for voting as Best Local / Podcast Host.
All right.
So if you want to vote for us, which I'm actually, please vote for us. Go to theday.com, scroll all the way down to the bottom, and go to contests, and go to the Day Best of Reader's Choice 2019. Click the link. And then just read all the stuff, their rules and stuff. Go to Arts and Entertainment, and then scroll down to Local Radio / Podcast Host. Click Vote next to Super Retro Throwback Reviews Podcast. I'll say that again. Go to next to Super Retro Throwback Reviews Podcast and click Vote. Enter all your information, and that's it. Voting ends March 12th at midnight. And I appreciate that. As for guest plugs, you can find Super Retro Throwback Reviews on Twitter at Super Retro TBR, on Instagram at Super Retro Throwback Reviews, Facebook Super Retro Throwback Reviews. If you want to stalk me on Facebook, it's Stephen Christina Jr. Like I said, my social circle is small, so I really don't have that many friends. You can find our audio podcast, the new and improved Super Retro Throwback Reviews, the audio files version 2.0, on iTunes, Spotify, Stitcher, SoundCloud, Google Play, Podbean, and iHeartRadio. And just type in Super Retro Throwback Reviews and it'll come up. Google Play / Google Podcasts, whatever. Pretty much we're everywhere. And on YouTube, we are on Super Retro Throwback Reviews. So just type that in, hit subscribe, tap the bell. Like Anthony said, we're pretty much putting content out all the time. And our podcast is on a bi-weekly basis. So keep an eye out for that.
All right. And finally, if you are a gamer or know a gamer that wants to talk some tech and science news, let me know. Do you know of any tech news you'd like to hear discussed? Do you have any other general questions you'd like to hear answered on the show? Send an email to videogamecrosstalk@gmail.com or tweet at the show using the hashtag AskVGXT and give me the deets on what's going down. Please don't forget to like, review, subscribe, and share this podcast all over your social media accounts. And Video Game Crosstalk can be found on basically every podcast network that's out there. Thank you one last time for hanging out with us. And Steve, thank you so much for joining me.
Thank you for having me again, Anthony. And if I do get approved for press for Empire State Comic-Con, definitely we'll meet up and probably get a beer.
Absolutely. Looking forward to it. And in the words of Mahatma Gandhi, a man is but the product of his thoughts. What he thinks, he becomes.